everyone. All right. Well, welcome all. This is really exciting to be here today. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Kathleen Fox Redmond, and I am a past but always will be member of Lake Harriet Spiritual Community. I lived in Minneapolis for almost 2 years, and I had the pleasure of finding Lake Harriet within a month of me being there, and it became my spiritual home almost immediately. And the wonderful people and programs and everything. And I got the chance to be on the council and the visionary committee there and feel a real part of the community. So, you know, if you are you have been a part of Lake Harriet, or this is your first time coming on a Zoom with Lake Harriet, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. And it's an honor for me to be here. I'm living right now in Boston, so that I can be part of a Lake Harriet Spiritual Community service is just a thrill for me. Even though we're going through kind of a crazy time, it's still a wonderful honor for me to be with you all here today. I do, as we're starting, I do want to stop and just wish you know, all women a happy Mother's Day. And I feel like Mother's Day is a day not only for those who are actually biological mothers or even adoptive mothers, but for all women who carry the energy of love and nurturance and compassion and healing that mothers do. This is a day to celebrate all of us. And a way to honor all mothers, even honoring the mothers of the men on this call. It's a special day, honor for me to be doing this on Mother's Day. You know, my mom passed away 10 years ago, but it's a very important part of my life. I still wear a heart that I gave her at her 75th birthday, and she wanted to make sure when she passed that I would wear it and have it all the time, which I do. And so I celebrate that. I celebrate myself. I'm a mother of a almost 33-year-old who just had a baby a month ago. So my daughter became a mother. So there's something very special about this Mother's Day to me. For me. So anyway, I just want to welcome you all and say I'm thrilled that you're here. And in that energy of, you know, the divine feminine that is with us today and always, let's, you know, have some fun together and explore some of these topics. And I'm going to present a number of things, and then I will leave time towards the end for some questions and just some interchange between all of us, because that's where it is the best, when we all hear from one another. So I just want to start by, you know, in a minute, just taking some stillness and silence, because I'm a big believer in starting any kind of gathering just with a collective stillness and quieting down. But I think especially during this time of COVID, or this time of great transitional change, because we all know that what's going on right now is in society, we hear it being talked about, the coronavirus or the pandemic or COVID, but you know, many of us know it's about something much larger than that as well. So I often like to say, just during this time of transformation, when there's so much going on, and we've all probably experienced it, and you know, my sympathy and love go out to all of you who have suffered a loss or dealing with struggle, or all, you know, any of that in your life right now. But we're all dealing with ups and downs and emotional turmoil and other things going on in our life. So in that, but what we do know about times like this is that we're called to stillness. So in that light and in that energy, let's just take 2 minutes, and I'm just going to lead us in a very brief kind of guided meditation, just for a minute or two, just to help us get present, to become connected to our hearts, so we can move forward together in this next hour. So I'm going to ask you just to take 3 deep breaths, slow, deep breaths, just bringing yourself to this present moment, wherever you are, in your home or wherever else you may be. Just take a few deep breaths to bring you here into this present moment. And I want you to be aware of just how you're feeling. Just notice anything, sensation going on in your body, any emotion that's coming up for you right now. Just be aware of it. It's all okay. And I want you just to take a couple of more breaths, with each breath, I want you to imagine a light coming into your heart. And feel the softness of the light. And just let that light and that softness coat whatever you're feeling right now. May need to soothe you and calm you and bring you into the moment. It may in some ways strengthen a feeling of joy or presence that you're feeling right now. But just let that light be what it needs to be at this moment. And then take a couple of deep more breaths, imagining that light getting brighter with each breath. And then just sit with that light for a moment. And bring yourself into the stillness of your heart. Okay, thank you all. So my title that I came up with for today, and you probably have saw it on the meetup or on Lake Harriet's website, was At the Heart of It All, Connecting to What Truly Matters During This Time of Change. And that seems like it could cover a lot, but what my hope is just to cover a few things that I consider to be kind of soulful responses to what's going on right now. So I'm going to share some insights about what I've experienced in terms of what's going on in the world and internally in each one of us. But also to look at what truly matters, because I think this is a time that's what it's bringing us to, is what really truly matters in our lives. So what's at the heart of it all? What's in our hearts? What's at the heart of all of this? I want to start by reading, and then I'm also going to also just offer some tools and practices throughout the time together to help us move through this in a healthy and expansive way as possible. But when I was preparing for today, one of the things that came to me was the quote from Charles Dickens from A Tale of Two Cities, which many of you may be familiar with, but I know the first line, which was, "It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times." And when I looked it up, it goes on to say, so it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And I thought, wow, boy, that talks about now. And, Dickens was, back in 1859, I think it was, when he wrote A Tale of Two Cities, he was addressing some of the tension and the kind of class war between the rich and the poor, which is going on for us now. He also was talking about despair and suffering in the human condition amidst hope and joy as well. And I thought, boy, isn't this just kind of maybe the cycle of life in some ways that we in our evolutionary process, go through, and we go through it at different levels. And so what I'm going to talk about today, for some of you, it may not be new information, but I'm going to ask you to look at it, maybe open up to hearing it in a new way, or seeing it from a new perspective or a new light, because that often happens. And just like Dickens experiencing this and people experiencing this back in 1859, similar to what we seem is true, evolution is that it occurs at deeper and deeper levels, bringing us to a deeper place as humanity. So that is what goes on. And what we do know is that the lower polarity, the ebb and flow of the tides, the death of in the fall and winter, so that we can welcome newness and birth in the spring. all that is what we all know on some level, is what times of change have to do. That in some ways there has to be a death in order to create new space for what's going to come in. And the thing about that is that we can all know that in our heads, but it doesn't always feel good. I don't know about you, but at least to me, this hasn't always felt good in the last month or so. And the good news is we don't have to like it. I think what we have to learn to have this be beneficial for us is how do we move through this time in a way that is really going to enhance the growth of us individually and also collectively. So keeping in mind that we don't have to like this, and it doesn't always have to feel good, and it's not going to, but we're moving through, through the birth canal. That's what we're doing. We're moving through the birth canal into a new birth. And it's not always going to feel comfortable. And I'm reminded, I did research years ago around Carol Dweck's image or concept of the growth mindset, which is, when people resist growth, they have much harder times in life. When you can be open to growth, which is what our nature is as human beings, we tend to do much better when we kind of flow with life. And yet, although that is a challenge, and what we know that this is a time of integration between our human side and our kind of soul spiritual side, it's bringing up a lot of challenges. So the one thing I do want to say that as a framework or a background for this, what has gotten me through a lot of this time is that is holding a vision. I really believe in, and I know we know from the book of Proverbs when it says, without a vision, the people perish. So, great people like Martin Luther King and Gandhi and, many people who led movements is because they held on to a vision. And I think this is really critical at this time, in addition to honoring what we're all feeling and going through, is to somehow hold to a larger vision. And for me, that vision is that I believe deep down in my soul that we are going through and we are part of something very beautiful right now. And everything that's going on right now is here to help us individually in our own growth and collectively as a planet. Again, there is despair. I have gone through all of it. I have had days of great despair. I have days of great fear. I have days where, like, oh yeah, screw that notion that we're part of something beautiful. This doesn't feel very beautiful at all. This feels awful, and this is affecting me in ways that I don't like. I said to a friend once that I love the feeling about control when I can say, as long as it doesn't happen to me, as long as I don't have to lose my control, then I'm going to be okay. But that's not how this works. So, but what we are doing, as we know, is that we are creating space. We're creating space, and part of that, this is a time of healing, a time of letting go of what no longer serves us and opening up to something greater and something more beautiful. So, call it the chrysalis turning into a butterfly, any image from nature that we can come up with. We're going through that on a collective level greater than we've ever gone through before. Certainly in none of our lifetimes can we remember a time that this has affected the whole planet. And infected everyone in such a big name, in such a big way. So we know that, and yet, so there's a part of me on better days that I feel honored to be going through this time. There are other days that I say, did my soul really agree to this? I can't believe that, because there's a belief that we all had soul contracts and that all of us said, yeah, I want to be down on earth at this time. And so there's another friend of mine who has said, listen, when we get back up there, if I ever say to you, I'm coming back to earth, remind me again not to do that. So, yes, we all, in some ways, we were born for this. Our whole lives have led us up to this place. And there really is something beautiful going on right here. And in some ways, look at all the beauty and good we're seeing. They're saying the environment is better than it's been in ages, in years. The air is cleaner. People have commented that the sky looks bluer, the grass looks greener. They hear birds chirping more in the morning. We're hearing stories about fish and other animals returning to their natural places that they weren't before. So the earth is replenishing, we know that. So I actually just heard a story this morning about a teenager it was in New Mexico, I think, who found $135,000 outside of an ATM. and it was the supplier left it there by mistake, and he immediately called the police. And it was and he comes from a family who's been struggling during this time. And the whole town kind of applauded him, and gave him, in fact, a number of people gave him money for this. But it's another example. We're hearing more and more stories, even though the news often tells us things that we don't want to hear, but we're hearing more and more stories about the wonderful things that are happening. So holding on to this vision of being part of something beautiful, and we're being led to a greater heart-centered consciousness. That's what I believe with every ounce of my being. That's what my soul tells me. And we are in a process of becoming, of growing, of anchoring love on a much deeper level onto the planet and within ourselves. In our kind of 3D consciousness, we've dealt with a lot of that fear, that anxiety, that self-doubt, that separation from each other and from the universe. And we're moving into a time where we're going to, experience the other things on a much greater level. And that's what our souls are doing. They are calling us to become our greatest selves, our fullest selves. Michelle Obama, in her book, if any of you read Becoming, one of her things that she says is, she says, I want to inspire everyone to tap into their own journeys of becoming. And that feels very much like part of my mission right now too, is what I want to help other people do, to tap into my own journey of becoming and what that means for me, but to also look at what does that mean for other people. So anyway, so how do we know this is a pause time of rebooting, resetting. We know that this is creating space. We know that it's helping us to look at what truly matters. And sometimes times of struggle helps us, what we don't want turns us to what we truly do want. So we know all that, again, up here, but how do we hold that vision that something, that we are a part of something beautiful, and that we're becoming fuller versions of ourselves and still experience our humanity, still deal with the feelings that come up when someone we know is ill, or we're worried about our finances, or someone we know ourselves, or someone we know have lost a job, or when we're trying to deal with social isolation, all the things that really contribute to our struggles at this time. So what we do know, and how do we integrate those two parts of ourselves, the part of us that is connected to the universe, like our souls, and then the part of us that is a physical body living here on this planet, going through a time of great transition and transformation. So how do we integrate those two? And one of the things I'm going to put forth, I'm going to do a couple of exercises around that, is about what we know about the energetic body, is that we have 3 lower chakras and we have 3 higher chakras. And our middle chakra, which is the 4th chakra, which is the heart, is the integrator or the connector. And what we do know is that the heart is really our most powerful tool in terms of grounding ourselves. The heart combined with our breath is our most powerful tool in terms of grounding ourselves, and also connecting the lower parts of ourselves, which is our humanness, versus the upper 3 chakras, which connects us to the universe. And we know that those things get integrated through the heart. Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, says that the heart is the energy that sustains us. And I had the privilege of doing some work with an institute called the Heart Math Institute out in California. If some of you are familiar with them, but they've done a ton of research around the physical and energetic power of the heart. But their work is incredible. I won't have time to go into a lot of it, but one of the things they know is that electromagnetically, the heart is about 100 times more powerful than the brain. They are learning all this stuff about the brain within the heart, about the power of the heart, about how the power of the heart connects us to one another, and about coherence within the heart, that when our hearts feel stronger and more aligned, not only do we live better lives in our own lives, but we also affect others in a really positive way. So I know we hear that a lot, like many times people would talk about, yes, a heart-centered world, and the heart is so powerful. But what I want to just do a couple things, and there's a couple things I'm going to talk about, and we're going to experiment with them a little bit, is what does that really mean? How do we really live that? Because I know this is my talk. People who know me know I'm very much about the heart and about heart work and how do we do this. But there are so many days that I kind of forget about that part of me. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I've got this most powerful tool in the world right within me. And it is more powerful than anything. It is our gateway to the soul. It is, you know, not only the thing that creates health and coherence in our physical body, but it creates health, coherence, and well-being in all of our lives. So during this time of COVID, during this time of great change in our culture, I can't stress enough that my belief is that our practice and our call is to more and more and more connect with our hearts. And what that, you know, really means will depend on different people for what that means. But certainly we know that the heart is like the eye of the storm, that with all the chaos going out in the world, and we've known this for years through ancient wisdom, with all the chaos going out in the world, you know, our job as spiritual beings is to keep coming back to the center. We get pulled out into the chaos and we come back to the center. You know, a comment by a colleague or a friend or a stranger or the news pulls us out into the tumbling, and we kind of, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, kind of swirl around and get lost in all that energy. And what the heart does, if we remember, is to bring us back to that center place where we know the heart is what the truth of who we are. In our heart, and as a gateway to the soul, is where the greatest love resides. And so connecting to that, aligning with that, is really our greatest power. And we know from science and research, and Fritz, I'm forgetting his last name, but that each one of us as human beings emit beams of light, emissions of light. We know that from research. And part of connecting to the heart is really increasing those beams of light, because we also know from research that part of the change that's going to come during this time is not just the outward structures are going to change that need to be changed. You know, things are crumbling because we're creating space for the new. But what's the most powerful change is going to happen is the self-transformation that's happening for people internally, because we know when we change others around us energetically. When we shift others around us. So any kind of work that we can do with the heart, if I, you know, give the best advice during this time, and I'm going to talk about how to do that, but it's about keep reminding yourself to align with your heart, to go, when you go out in the chaos, to come back, come back to the heart. So we're going to talk about this in terms of 3 kind of umbrella practices that I've kind of worked on and I really believe in. And they are identity, intention, and integrity. And this is what I believe is something really beautiful. To be a part of something beautiful is that these are the 3 words that I've kind of focused on to say this is really something beautiful that's going on, that's helping us move through this and create a deeper heart-centered consciousness in the world. So if we look at the word identity, this is about, you know, this is a time, what we're going through right now, this is a time of strengthening our identity. And just think about that for a minute, what that might mean. You know, so often the old paradigm was about our identity was something that came from outside of ourselves. 5 years ago, I went through a major transformation in my life where I left my job, lost my marriage for a brief time, lost my relationship with my daughter, lost my home. It as if what I call the perfect storm. What was most difficult about that time for me is I felt I lost all of me. I lost every role and identity I had had in my life. And then I thought, who am I then? If I'm not these things, who am I? Part of the process that I feel was divinely meant for me was to be able to come to the place of say, none of those things are really the true me. You know, my true identity lies within myself, lies within, you know, the soul that who I am, the love of who I am. So that's, you know, this is a time to really strengthen that, reclaim that, affirm who am I? And what better way in some ways than we're all alone. You may be living with a couple of people in your house, but we don't have the connection that is a wonderful part of our lives, but also distracts us sometimes from really going within. So some days I hate the isolation, and other days I'm very grateful for it, because I know this is a time for me, for greater depth, for greater looking at what do I still need to heal. What are the emissions of light that I want to put out in the world in order to help what is going on right now. So one of the ways that I think I want to look at this, when you talk about your identity, one of the things that helps me is the phrase, start with the heart. So, and what that means is, I know there have been people who talk about this. I think, in fact, I think Christine Day talks about this, about how when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing you should do is just place your hand on the heart. And placing your hand on your heart actually releases oxytocin. We know that physically, that it releases oxytocin. But if you just breathe inside, it's a way of kind of setting yourself and setting the day, and just saying, you know, this is my focus. You know, I'm just going to set my heart. So that's one of the way, you know, that we do this. But what start with the heart means is, if you keep that in your head, it means applies to everything. Start in the morning. When you're starting a new task, start with your heart. And we'll talk about how different ways you can do that. If you're about to get into a discussion with somebody that may be hard, take a moment and start with your heart. Bring yourself back to the truth of who you are and what you know to be true, what you know that truly matters to you. Because when we come from that place, our lives are very different. So start with the heart can mean, it can mean at the beginning of your day. It can mean at the beginning of any segment of your day. It can mean, you know, across the board. It's really those moment to moment times. And what we're really talking about here is the benefit and the need to keep aligning with your soul. And then we do that through our hearts. So to keep aligning with that part of us, because we're in a time where we're not only being asked to claim our personal power, but that personal power is about our divine nature. And we know that. And that's, again, that's a great concept. But the little Catholic girl in me that says, I'm not God. you know, you go to hell if you think you're God, you know, has to awaken to this whole other side of my being who says, darn right, I'm divine. Darn right, I have the power to help change the world. So that, you know, that is one of the practices. So what I want to do right now is just, if we think of the idea of start with the heart, I just want to talk about and practice maybe a couple of things. We all know, and again, everyone needs to find what works for them. So we all know about the power of meditation. We all know about yoga or qigong or being outside in nature, all those things that help you connect to who you truly are. And that's, you know, everyone will find a different thing. Walking meditation for some people works better. But I'm going to propose just a couple other things, and some may be reminders. Just that little things you can do throughout your day to remind you that the most important thing during this time, from my perspective, is to keep coming back to that center. You're out in the chaos, say, it's okay, I'm back at that center. I'm coming back to my heart, because that is the truth of who I am. So as I just said, you know, always remember, hands on the heart is a really good practice. Sometimes I can feel myself getting agitated or fearful, and I just do that and breathe into my heart. And, you know, maybe we'll just do that for a minute right now. Let's just, you know, take a minute just to breathe into your heart. Just as gently and gently as you can, and softly. And just be aware of your heart and your body and your nervous system just calming down. It's almost as you know, the spiritual teacher Matt Kahn talks about that our heart is where our innocent child lives too, our inner child. And so it's kind of just acknowledging that child. It's just taking a moment just to, not only just to breathe, but to focus purposely on your heart and on the light within the heart. And if this feels comfortable, see if inwardly you can just say, just keep repeating, I love you, heart. I love you, heart. Thank you for all the blood that you pump through the rest of my body. Thank you for keeping me alive. Thank you for all the things you do every second of the day that I don't even know about and I don't always remember. But just thank you. Thank you for the way you connect me to other people, the way you connect me to myself, the way you show me what I delight in and take pleasure in this world, the way I can feel you open up. And just keep saying, if you can just keep saying, I love you to your heart. I love you and thank you. This is an easier way. Sometimes people have a hard time like looking in a mirror and saying, I love you, I love you, I love you to ourselves. Some people struggle with that, but if you can begin by saying it to your heart, which is really the truth of who you are, but if you can begin there and just really simply, and notice too, is there any resistance that comes up when you tell your heart you love it? And just notice it. And as you're doing this, whatever comes up in you, I want you to love that. One of the greatest powers of the heart is that we learn to accept and love every piece of us that often as children we had to silence, or we had to betray, or we had to disown. Through no fault of other people's, it was where they were at the time, that there were good emotions and bad emotions, or right emotions and wrong emotions. But through the heart, whatever comes up during this time of change, our response is just, I love you. It's okay. So I want you to just internally just say to yourself, I am where I am, meaning if you're feeling sadness, fear, joy, numbness, whatever you're feeling right now, just say, and this is a great exercise to do, is placing your hand on your heart and just saying, I am where I am, and it's A-okay. Oftentimes, say, fear comes up and we judge ourselves, or even, on the spiritual path, we think we're not supposed to have those feelings. Those are low vibration. We're human, and what the most important thing is, how do we respond? So if we can respond with love, and again, start with the heart. Anything comes up in us, we start immediately with the heart. Wherever I am, where I am, makes me think of Popeye. I am what I am. You could say that too. I am what I am, and it's A-okay. And just feel that. See if you can feel your heart soften. And continuing to say, I love you to your heart, it's like a phrase that came to me, it's like gently loving yourself, because this is the truth of who you are, gently loving yourself until love becomes a habit. Gently loving yourself until love becomes a habit. Because we are so used to the other side, which is criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, beating ourselves up, punishing ourselves. And what we're trying to shift at this time is to allow love to become a habit in a very gentle, soft way. So just a reminder of why we're doing that. And I just have a couple of small things to talk about now, and then we're going to go into some questions. But, you know, the three categories I talked about, identity, intention, and integrity. I'm going to talk about intention and integrity quickly now. But I want us just to, this first one, this identity piece is really crucial, because from this, everything comes. So as we all know, when we're not aligned with the truth of who we are, when we're not aligned with our soul, with our hearts, things don't always go as well as they can. We're out in the chaos. And if we can keep gently bringing ourselves back and loving all those parts of us that want to stay out there in the chaos because it's what we've known, it's okay. You know, we love every part of us that does that, but we keep gently bringing ourselves back. So not only is this a time to strengthen identity, this is a time of strengthening intention. And what intention, it's kind of like you've started with your heart, you've activated that power, and now you're going to lead with it. And leading it with means that what are your intentions in the world? So what are your responses and what are your choices? Viktor Frankl has a great quotation that says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. So once again, we hear that notion of creating space again. And with our choices, our moment-to-moment choices, this is the way that we can have a great impact on the world. We often think, you know, what can I do? I'm not a frontline worker. I'm not, you know, there's nothing I can do. I'm sitting in my home. You can do incredible things through strengthening your identity and connecting to your heart. You can do incredible things, energetic, you know, things that are in the process of transforming the world with strengthening your intention. You know, and when that intention is connected to your heart and there is a why to that. So, you know, if I choose to do something in my day, sometimes saying, I'm doing this because I'm taking care of me, all of a sudden the choice becomes way more powerful. Rather than this, well, I'm just doing this, I'm kind of bored. But if you know, I'm going to go read a book, but I'm doing this because I'm really strengthening my identity. I'm strengthening my heart. And even just little ways of saying that to yourself, you know, I'm eating this because I want to nourish my body. You know, everything we do that connects it to an intention and makes us look at how do we choose to respond. I just want to give you a great example of this. Yesterday, I had a sibling call, a Zoom call, and I went on and my camera was shot and on my computer. And I panicked because I was thinking of this morning. I think, oh my gosh, I'm doing this presentation tomorrow. And I spent 2 hours on Apple support and no luck. You know, they think it's a hardware issue. So I immediately, you know, I could hear almost the universe later on saying to me, how do you want to choose, how do you choose to respond to this? So again, leading with my heart from that place of alignment, how do you choose to respond to this? Because our response is always our choice. You know, sometimes things happen in our lives, but our response, as Viktor Frankl says, that's our growth and freedom. And I would say yesterday afternoon, I got a D in response. Because it's COVID time, I probably would have given myself an F, but I gave myself a D because it was COVID. Because I didn't remember all this. I immediately went into, oh my gosh, look at the universe is telling me I'm invisible with my siblings. They don't see me. They've never seen me. I'm invisible to myself. I told a whole story about what that meant, that my face could not show up on the sibling call. And I went into panic. I don't want to have to buy a new computer. What is this going to mean? How am I going to do the Zoom call for Lake Harriet tomorrow? I just was out in that chaos until later on, and I was in there for a number of hours until later on that night. I, you know, reached out to my daughter and son-in-law, and I'm here with his camera, which is working beautifully. My sister offered to lend me her computer. There were plenty of solutions around. But in the moment, my response was not aligned with my heart. It was not aligned with the truth of who I was. And I could laugh at it because as I went to bed, I found myself just kind of holding my child as I was falling asleep and just saying, it's okay, it's okay. and it calmed me down. And then this morning when I got up, I was able to, all right, I'm starting with my heart. And I had a lovely meditation, and I was kind of right back there. But also being okay that I kind of spun out of control yesterday. You know, I'm learning to laugh at myself and be able to say, wow, you just went crazy yesterday. And there are many times that I've done that. And this is a time during this time that, you know, and that was the other thing. I said, I had it yesterday. I'm done with COVID. I'm done with this time. You know, I'm trying to do something good here. And look at now my computer doesn't work. And I just totally spun out. So again, totally fine, totally okay. But you know, you always have redos with the universe. And I kept having that feeling come back like, okay, do you want to choose a different response? One that feels better and is more in line with the truth of who you are, because our soul's calling us to become, we're becoming more and more the truth of who we are, and we're being called to ask to live that. So that really is what integrity is. So intention, you know, this is a time of strengthening our identity. It's the time of strengthening our intention, what really matters to us. How do we lead with our heart? How do we respond to things? What are the choices do we make? How do we respond when we don't have the response we wish we did? Do we treat ourselves with love like we would a child? Do we treat ourselves the way we would treat a friend? You know, I've had so many friends say to me, you know, I've had a tendency to be a little hard on myself at times, just a little, and you know, more than that. And they say, "Boy, Kathleen, you would never talk to me like the way you're talking to yourself right now." And so that's part of the intention piece: is how do I choose to respond to when different emotions and different situations in my life arise? And then the third piece is this is a time of strengthening our integrity. And what integrity is if you look at the word integrity, it's part of the word for integration, which means wholeness. And what we are doing right now is, you know, years ago, Eckhart Tolle wrote A New Earth, that we are bringing, you know, what is in heaven, what is divine onto this planet right now. We know that for years, emissions of light is being downloaded onto this planet, creating this new 5D consciousness. But what our job is, that all this light is coming onto the planet, what our integrity about is integrating it within our bodies and onto the planet. So what that means is we got to walk the talk. We not only just have to know this stuff, and my bookshelves are full of all these books I've read about people, and there have been times I've said, but have I really practiced that? So this is a time that we're beginning a great opportunity to practice everything we've learned about what it means, you know, about our growth on this spiritual path. So, and the thing I want to really emphasize about this, because sometimes we forget this, is small choices matter. Small steps, small ways matter. When I drop something on the floor and my first thought is to say, oh, you idiot, why did you break that? And I stop myself and I say, I'm going to choose a different response, one that is more aligned with my heart. That matters. I send out a different emission of light to not only to my body, and my field, but to the whole field of intention and the whole universal field out there. So if we really believe that all these things really matter in our lives, the meaning that our lives would take on are just incredible. And the more we practice, the more momentum we build. And we know that the more momentum we build, it's like the snowball effect, that a small snowball, when rolled in more snow, keeps gathering and becoming bigger. So if you look at your lives during this time of being patient when you're out in the chaos, we're all going to be there. This is not an easy time. But what we can remind each other to do is always to come back to the center as best as we can. And when we don't, to forgive ourselves and to love ourselves and be gentle with ourselves. You know, again, gently being able to love ourselves until love becomes a habit. Because this heart-centered consciousness is all about creating higher vibrations of love on this planet. And a lighter energy is coming into the planet. And so we all can do so much to contribute to this, and makes us really realize that we really indeed are a part of something really incredible and really beautiful. So I just want to, I'm just going to have the words, because I haven't mastered yet. This was a last minute thought, and I haven't totally mastered how to do to show like a YouTube video on a Zoom call. But this is a call I just want you to listen to, not a call, a song. It's called Something Beautiful, and it's from where I got this notion of we are really a part of something beautiful, written by an about 6 years ago or 7 years ago by an artist called Alexi Murdoch, Murdoch. If anybody wants to look it up on YouTube, and it's called Something Beautiful, and it's a repetitious song. So I'm just going to tell you the words and then you can listen to it because it's really beautiful. And the words are, may the grace of God be with you always in your heart. May you find the truth within you from the start. And may you find the strength to know you are part of something beautiful. And then it talks about, I saw a light within your eyes. I saw a light within your eyes. And then it just keeps repeating itself. So let me just play that. I just like you to keep your eyes closed, and we're just going to lock in that feeling within our hearts. Just affirming our identity, the love and truth that is within our hearts, that is who we really are. Loving every part of ourselves, no matter how it feels, whether we like it or not, but just loving and accepting each part of ourselves that has something to teach us. Locking within our heart the feeling of the powerful choices we can make through our intention, through our responses. The powerful light and energy that we can emit into the world, which is moment to moment transforming ourselves, one another, and the whole planet. And locking into our heart the power of integrating heaven onto earth, of knowing that we can anchor this light through our practice, through our awareness. We are here to anchor and embody this incredible light that will bring us all to incredible places. And I'd like you just to, whatever you're feeling in your heart right now, if you could just feeling that in your heart, we're just going to send it out to others. We're going to send it out to all those at Lake Harriet who maybe couldn't participate today. We're going to send it out to all those in the whole country, in Minneapolis and Boston, where I am, but where anyone's on this call, we're just going to send it out to this whole country. And then we're going to send that light of well-being and health and joy and peace and love to the whole planet. The power of our hearts can transform the world. And starting with the love that we have within us, for ourselves within our hearts. Okay, let's all bring ourselves back. And one thing I'd just like to close with today, I know I've gone a little over time, and hopefully if anyone has any questions or comments, you can stay on for a little bit longer, and we can share that. So I apologize that I went a little over time, but just in closing, one thing I want to leave you with is just to be gentle as you go out into the world and be gentle as you move through your day. So much is coming up right now, and so much is being awakened in us, so much is being shown to us. And I know for me, the other way I've gotten through it, besides constantly connecting to my heart, is just connecting to the people in my life that really matter to me. And there have been some family and friends who have, pulled me out of some, or sat with me in some of my dark moments during this time, experiencing my own loss and what that means for me. And I know it's not easy. We're all worried about a lot of things, and there's so much uncertainty, and that for human beings is scary. But when I can connect to my heart and I can become vulnerable enough to open that heart to others, and just be me and say, I'm having a hard day today, and I feel the love that comes from other people, it's pretty beautiful. And that's a way we're really a part of something beautiful. So be gentle on yourself, be gentle with one another during this time of great power, but of great change and uncertainty. Um, and let's, just move forward together, believing at the heart of it all that the love we have for ourselves, the love we have for one another, the love we have for this planet is really what truly matters and is what is going to bring us where we need to go.